Please, I'm begging you, forgive me. Their life ended at just 5 years and 11 months old. In the notebook left behind by that little girl, there was a desperate save our souls written. Right before she passed away, she wrote, "Grandma and Grandpa are here." When her mother said, "Let's go to Disneyland," she barely managed a faint smile and a soft, "Yeah, we'll never see that smile again." Even if you think you would never do something like that, something unusual might happen around you. There might be a life you can save. I want to address this so that more suffering children can be saved, not treating it as someone else's problem. The Meguro 5-year-old child abuse death case. On March 2nd, 2018, living in Meguro Ward, Tokyo, Yua Funato, age 5, complained of a stomachache at home. She later lost consciousness, was taken to the hospital, and soon pronounced dead from extreme malnutrition. The lack of nutrition led to sepsis, meaning she died from not receiving enough food. Her body weight was 12.2 kg, 8 kg below the 20 kg average for her age. Additionally, her body had over 170 bruises and scars on her legs resembling severe frostbite. Given the situation, police suspected her parents of causing death by neglecting their guardian duties. In addition, the father was arrested on suspicion of causing injury. The person arrested was Funato. The defendants Yudai and his wife Yuri followed by Yudai. The defendant was sentenced to 13 years in prison. Defendant Yuri was sentenced to 8 years in prison and is currently appealing. This case was determined to be something that should never happen in Japan. One after another, unimaginable facts were revealed. The many acts of abuse were inhuman. Here are the case details. In April 2012, Yua-chan was born in Kagawa Prefecture to Yuri and her ex-husband. She was loved by both parents, but in 2015, Yuri and her former husband divorced. In April 2016, Yuri and Yudai, both defendants and colleagues, married and soon moved in together. At this time, Yuri was already pregnant with Yudai's child, and after the two got married, the environment surrounding Yua-chan gradually worsened. In other words, the abuse toward Yua-chan began. Yudai, the defendant, called it discipline, but his violence tormented Yua-chan nearly daily. About 4 months later, on August 25th, the abuse toward Yua-chan worsened daily. Finally, a neighbor reported to the Child Consultation Center that the crying was severe, and the center began to have doubts about the situation in the Funato household. The defendant? Oh, no. G subtitle details. Arte 12. 13, 16, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, 25, 26. When I go there, I'm scared of Pa, so I don't want to go home. I cry and say I like the previous Pa better. The Child Consultation Center will provide temporary protection. At this time, the doctor diagnosed a pattern of daily abuse based on Yu-chan's condition. On January 29th after New Year's, there was a parent-child meeting at the Child Consultation Center. Yua-chan said she couldn't express her feelings well. Yudai, the defendant, replied, "I'm sorry, I won't do it again." He apologized, saying, I'll be as gentle as I can, so please be a good girl." However, this promise was never kept. On February 1st, the Child Consultation Center ended temporary protection. From then, Yua-chan's nightmare days resumed. She returned. At first, there was no violence, but gradually, more and more scars appeared on Yua-chan's body. On March 19th, a police officer found Yua-chan alone outside and took her into protective custody. There were scrapes on both of Yua-chan's knees. She also had a cut on her lower lip and a 5-centimeter bruise on her stomach. When asked, Yua-chan said her father hit her. Her parents denied this, claiming they were just playing, briefly returned home, and insisted they never hit her, saying she simply fell. However, after being examined at a medical facility, Yudai, the defendant, admitted that he raised his hand as part of discipline. Temporary protective custody was decided for the second time. Yudai was referred to prosecutors for suspected injury, but the case was dropped and he wasn't prosecuted. On July 31, temporary protective custody ended with guidance, and Yua-chan was returned to them under 5 promised conditions. They attended parenting consultations every Tuesday, regularly visited the center and other institutions, and promised not to hit Yua-chan. They took her to her grandparents and were to follow child center guidance, but these promises weren't kept. Medical institutions reported injuries on August 31 and September 13. At first, Yua-chan explained that her father hit her and that her mother was also there. This was what she said about Yudai, the defendant. When was she kicked? During the second report, even when asked who did it, Yua-chan did not answer. Because of that, Yua-chan was not taken into protective custody. Due to recent events, the police, hospital and city child welfare section will improve their system to regularly and directly monitor the situation. However, on October 30th, when a child consultation center staff member visited, Yuri and the defendant said they were moving to Tokyo. The staff member was concerned that care would be interrupted due to the move. They told Yuri that they would confirm what would happen going forward. The defendant said that even after moving, they would have a similar hospital introduced to them. On January 17, 2018, Yuri moved with Yua-chan and her younger brother to join Yudai, who had relocated earlier. At the previous checkup, Yua-chan weighed over 16 kilo with no issues. However, they stubbornly refused to tell the Child Consultation Center their new address. The Child Consultation Center confirmed the new address with the city. On January 29th, in the new address's jurisdiction, they notified the Shinagawa Child Consultation Center and made Funato's case a top priority. The Shinagawa Child Consultation Center decided they could handle the case due to the move and new environment. Meguro Ward and the Shinagawa Child Consultation Center discussed the issue, but the center refused the visit. In early February, Kagawa Child Consultation Center again contacted Shinagawa Child Consultation Center. They made contact and finally conducted a home visit on February 9. However, they were not able to meet with Yua-chan. By this time, the abuse toward Yua-chan had already escalated significantly. By mid-February, she was being forced to wake up alone at 4 a.m. to practice writing hiragana 4 o'clock in the morning in the cold of winter. The room had no light or heat, and in Yua-chan's notebook she wrote, "Please forgive me, I will do better tomorrow than today." Thinking about how cold both her body and heart must have been makes me so sad. She was barely fed, sprayed with cold water, and repeatedly forced to lie down. Her eyes swelled and her condition quickly deteriorated. February 27th. Even in that state, Yua-chan wrote the diary as instructed, and this was her final entry. She practiced the 9 times table. Yua-chan was so weak she could hardly do anything by herself. She kept repeating herself and said she couldn't eat. Even in this condition, fearing the discovery of abuse, they never took her to the hospital. On March 2nd, Yua-chan told her mother about stomach pain and began repeatedly opening and closing her hands. She became unable to open and close her hands, and her eyelid movements became slower. Yuri, the defendant, continued to weaken. She lies to encourage Yua-chan, mentioning Yua-chan's grandfather, father, and mother. "Grandma and Grandpa are here. Let's visit Disneyland. When you start elementary school, we'll do lots of fun things together." She answered those questions with a big smile. 10 minutes later, Yua-chan vomited the sports drink and stopped moving. Yudai. The defendant mostly admitted to the abuse, but denied committing the acts. He said his wish to be Yua-chan's real parent caused the abuse. Yuriko was mentally controlled by Yudai, and Yudai's behavior toward Yua-chan. Yuriko couldn't resist the abuse by the defendant. Fearing for her own position, she obeyed her husband. Yuriko pretended not to see the abuse toward Yua-chan. She explained the reason she couldn't save Yua-chan like this. At just 5, Yua-chan was left alone in a dark, cold room without enough food. To be acknowledged by Papa and Mama. Driven by that one desire, she wrote in her diary, "As I said earlier, the child died from severe malnutrition." They stated this incident should never occur in Japan today. As for Yuri, the defendant in this case, she published a book from notes written in prison. What should we learn from reading this book? When something happens, we can also notice what's going on around us. It means that there is a chance. If you feel something is off, don't ignore it or just walk away. We must not let there be another Yua-chan. It is up to each and every one of us to protect those lives. Isn't that the only thing we can do for Yua-chan after learning about this case? I sincerely pray for the souls of Fune and Yua-san. If there is a next life, I hope you're born into a loving family filled with happiness and smiles. I hope you can spend your days with a smile on your face. That's all for this time. Thank you very much for watching.